Hello and welcome back to Get It Off Your Chest, a What I Wish I Knew guide from girlfriends who have lived, fought, and survived breast cancer. My name is Andy, and I am proud to be the host of this amazing group of women. For this episode, we brought in Tammy Helgett with her husband Terry, and Amber and her husband Jason. We also have Bonnie Fortwangler here again to give her insight as a mental health professional. Our intention for this episode is to hear from the husbands about what it is like to be the partner of the woman going through breast cancer. After all, this disease not only affects the patient, but her family as well, and we hope this episode provides some support for these husbands who are trying to help their wives with this disease. So let's get started with some introductions.
My name is Amber Melby. I am a 7-year breast cancer survivor. I had 16 rounds of chemotherapy, a double mastectomy, and reconstructive surgery back in 2015 going into 2016. I am the founder and president of Be the Light, a local nonprofit that raises money for breast cancer survivors in southern Minnesota. And I am here with my wonderful spouse of 20 years, Jason.
I'm Tammy Helgett. I'm here with my husband Terry, 28 years. I was diagnosed in November of 2021, and I've gone through chemo, and I had surgery, a double mastectomy last Monday, and so I'm still on the journey.
I'm Bonnie. I'm from Rocky Legacy Counseling. I'm a mental health therapist, and I have experience working with oncology patients and families.
What did you guys do to show your support, and what worked, what didn't work throughout your guys' cancer journeys?
For me, I think that it was a pretty scary time for both of us, especially my wife Tammy. I remember thinking, we all know what cancer is, and we all think the worst immediately, I think, just naturally. So did my wife, I think, a little bit, and I remember looking in her eyes, and you could just see the fear there. And perhaps the biggest thing we wanted to know at first is, okay, when can we get started? How quickly can we get this going and get it out before it gets worse? I remember that being the biggest fear that we both had. And when we finally kind of got, some answers to those things, like, okay, it's okay, it doesn't spread that fast and that sort of thing, and we relaxed a little bit and we got on the course. We ran into a couple landmines with your port and everything else, but that was kind of unusual. But once we got started, probably the worst part was the chemo part for you. And I just remember seeing how tired you were and trying to help with some of the stuff I didn't normally help with, probably enough, like dishes and meals and things like that, because I'm always gone officiating somewhere, or I still did that a lot, but I tried to just give you space, but yet be there and reassure you that when your hair went away, that you still looked beautiful to me, and that was, and she did, and I was like, it's just different. So those are some of the things I remember early on, at least. Now I'm sure there's more that'll come out in the rest of the podcast, but I'll give Jason a shot at this.
Well, I remember early on when you were just getting out of surgery. Amber, of course, is a nurse. Her sister's a nurse. Her mother's a nurse. So I'm sitting out in the waiting room with her mom and her sister, and she's in surgery, and the doctor comes out and says that he'd like to pull us in the office and talk to us. And I thought, wonderful, that's fantastic. And I could see on April and Sue's face that that's not good. And I'm like, why? What's going on? So after we went in there and before the doctor came and talked, I said, what's going on? They said, well, it's usually not good that they want to come in and talk. And that's when we found out that it was in your lymph nodes. And it had to be, it was a little further along than we had thought. So that was a scary moment for me, again, being married to a nurse and having a nurse for a sister-in-law and a mother-in-law for a nurse, and just being a normal Joe trying to figure out the medical side of it. So
What do you think from the support standpoint? What do you think was the hardest for you to support me in that journey, not just after surgery, but, in that, it was a year, really.
I would agree with Terry. The hardest thing for a husband is to watch you go through the pain of what you went through, because you can't take that away. It's kind of like trying to watch your wife give childbirth. As a husband, all you can really do is be there and hold their hand and help them out, but you can't help them with the pain side of it.
What did you find helped you in that kind of scenario where you kind of feel helpless? Because obviously you need to be able to take time and space for yourself to feel like you can be there for Amber or Tammy. And what was there something that you ever did to take that space?
I never really did so much because I don't really have a lot of outside activities. Having my mother there, she was retired and she could help us, that really helped. We did have a lot of community support. People set up a food train to where they would bring food and things like that. Amber's family lives close, so we had the support of her sisters and her mother especially also, so that definitely helped.
They supported you too.
Yes.
Terry, did you have anything?
We definitely, there were many of my wife's former coworkers because she had just quit her job at school at St. Mary's in Sleepy Eye the previous spring. You know, she wasn't going to come back and was kind of actively searching for a new job, and when this diagnosis came about, which ended up being somewhat of a blessing in that she didn't have to worry about going to work. So for me, I kind of, okay, well, we're down to one income, which was okay, but I probably officiated more basketball games this last winter than I've done in a long time. So we needed the support of like my mother, her mother especially. Some of her former co-workers were bringing food. So we always had food in the fridge, leftovers for me to come home for lunch too. You know, that was really nice. And it was people that, what can we do for you? And oftentimes you say, you know, that's just something you say, but these people actually came through, and we let them. You know, we invited them. Yeah, I won't, if you want to bring food, I'm not going to turn it down, sort of thing. And that was a big thing, because I remember saying too early on. I just remember saying a couple different times, you know, I'm sorry you have to go through this, because it's not something that never happens to you. It happens to other people, not you. You know, and when it happens to you, it really is a humbling experience. And we're a faith-filled family, and our kids, you know, were on board right away. And each time we went to chemo, they had a new gift and a new poem, just an encouraging poem that I just marveled at, their creativity and things like that. That as a guy, that doesn't really, you know, resonate with me as much, or us guys, Jason, you know, probably not as much, as we're not creative much, generally like that. And I think that really helped you, and you enjoyed those. And I was flabbergasted at the support system of the whole community. Basically, once they found out, and we didn't broadcast it out, but that stuff tends to leak out, and it was amazing.
I always found too that it was hard. It shouldn't have to be this way, but you have to kind of go through those tough times. You really do see who your support system is, and you really see that, what I say is the light in the darkness, with the community and your family and your friends rallying around you and doing all these little gestures and writing poems. And our daughter made this artwork here and some different ones at our house too. And yeah, I mean, if you've never felt so loved in your whole life, and you wish it didn't have to be after a cancer diagnosis, but and I remember that's something we really always said too, like we just really felt that all the time from people, and kind of part of the inspiration for Be the Light was wanting to pay forward what people had done for us and the kindness, and how can we help other people going through this. So it's sad it has to be kind of a tragedy, but you really do feel that support.
What did you and Tammy and Amber, what did you guys like being on the receiving end of the support from your husbands? What was it that was really impactful for you?
For me, Terry referenced this earlier, but Jason was great at this too. I mean, you've never felt, I mean, we talk about body image, sexuality, and just all of the emotional aspects that come with breast cancer as a diagnosis for women, because your body changes so much. So to still feel attractive, I mean, I was 40 years old. Our kids were teenage, 14, 12, and 8. So it was to still feel, I guess, attractive. Or for me, it was more not even about physical beauty, but like about worth. Just felt so useless and weak and depressed, and couldn't be there for my family like I had been before. So I didn't feel strong. again, I'm a nurse, so I'm a caregiver, so being the patient, nurses are the worst patients, they say, and it's true. It was really hard for me to accept being cared for. I really hated it because it wasn't natural for me. And it's probably not for a lot of people, but I guess, again, especially as a nurse. So Jason did an awesome job of, reassuring me all the time. I remember one time right after surgery, still had my drains. My best friends from Iowa came up, from my girlfriends from high school, to support me, and they wanted to take me out for dinner one night. We went to Green Mill, trying to have fun, trying to make they were, wanting to be there and normalize things, and I had found out I needed to have chemo, and that was the devastating part of the news after surgery, because we initially did not think that would be the case. Anyway, trying to have fun with my friends, sitting at Green Mill in so much pain, was just so uncomfortable with those dumb drains and the tissue expanders. Came home, I remember you helped to get me in the bathtub, and I just bawled and just kept saying it's going to be okay. There was a lot of those moments, and tracking my medications and keeping track of them, staying on top of the pain control, making sure I didn't get constipated with my pain medicine. Don't let that happen, by the way, people listening. That's from a patient and a nurse saying that. But I think, it's just a lot of little things. Just a lot of little things every day that he did to support me and our kids and our family. And I guess also, we do this anyway. My favorite thing about Jason is we laugh so hard about anything all the time. And humor was a big thing, I think, that got us through. And I know it probably saved me a lot of days, make me laugh at really inappropriate times. That was huge for us. So he attended every single chemo treatment with me. We were not in a COVID world, so he came to every single treatment, stayed the whole time with me, got me anything I needed, and made the nurses laugh and asked all the questions we needed to ask. And so those are some of the things that I remember.
Well, I agree with the self-worth, especially after quitting my job, and I just wanted to try something new, and I wasn't finding exactly what it was, and then this came along, and it was just, it's devastating, and yeah, you do question your self-worth, and especially those days, those first treatments of chemo, you're white. I mean, it's just, there's just nothing. You can't focus. At least I couldn't. You couldn't focus on reading or watching a TV show or whatever, and it's just like I just want to go to bed, and he just always reassured me, this is how it is right now, and this is what you're going through, and you just do what you need to do, and he just was always there for me. And he couldn't come to chemo. He came to the first one, and then after that the visitors shut down again, but he sent flowers each of the first 4 times, and on the third one, when they arrived, when I was in oncology, I just said aloud to the nurses and another patient there, I said, I told him he didn't need to do this every time. And the older woman that was there as a patient, she scolded me, and she said, don't you ever tell your husband not to send you flowers. You take them. Whatever he gives you, you take. And I was like, okay, you are correct. And yeah, you just appreciate, this is what marriage is. It's the good and the bad, and it's easy in the good, but in the bad, you just see truly how good they are. And and all the he claims to be a doctor sometimes. Some of the medical training that he needed, for some wound care, and
I've taken out a lot of stitches of our kids over the years, so I've got experience.
And helping after surgery, to rewrap, and all these things. I mean, it's vulnerable, and but they're there, and they do whatever they need to do.
Yeah, Bonnie, I'm still wondering, who do I charge for my services on that kind of stuff?
I know, right? And as I'm reflecting as this conversation is going, I'm hearing for spouses to really reassure their wives about their worth, their integrity, that they're going to make it, that they are going to get through this very difficult time and space, and how helpful to carry those emotions, because they can't carry carry them at that moment because they're physically and emotionally just wiped out. And how important to have the spouse say, I got you. Let me carry your self-worth for a bit. Let me carry the hopefulness and the courage and the strength for you, and we're going to get through this together. The other thing I heard is that you all are leaning into the values that have gotten you probably through other difficult times in your life. I heard spirituality, I heard humor, I heard that you just did it together, and those were the values that you had prior to cancer, and it was a value that cancer couldn't take from your relationship. And I think that's like, I get excited about those things when I hear cancer can't take those things. They exist even through the worst of the worst and the times where you think, I don't know if I can manage this, the heaviness of supporting and going through. But you lean into those values and they work. And it's not something that cancer can pluck away.
Was there ever any difficult times during, obviously there were, but was there ever any times where there'd be certain things that would kind of just make it even harder for you guys to be there for your wives, be there to support them, and what did you do to kind of get yourself through it?
You know, I can speak for myself, and I'm sure Terry, as us men, being 7 years out and looking back, the one thing that I never really took a grasp of is the emotional toll it took, because as men I was more just driven in, what do you need today? You need food. I'll help you get in the shower and get in the bath, and I'll do laundry, and I'll get the kids to school, and I'll get the kids here, and you rest and do that, but you don't kind of look and see what it takes as an emotional toll. And it was only after the fact that kind of Amber opened up about emotionally what she felt her self-worth was, and that she was in a lot of dark times. And it's, like I said, it's probably not that I wasn't paying attention, but you're just so tunnel vision on doing the daily tasks to get through the day. And I'll also speak for a man as not going through it physically like she was. To me, we were on the upside. Diagnosis is done, surgery's done, breast implants are done, drains are out, hair's coming back. So to me, we're going up. But she had times where she'd say, no, actually it was the other way. I'm actually going down, which you don't see.
I've been vocal that the year after treatment was harder, and we've talked a lot about that in this podcast. Corey has mentioned that too. People's hair starts growing back and they're done with surgery and chemo. Well, you're done, and we move on and we go help other people. But for a lot of women, for myself specifically, it was harder for me because it was really that trauma of what the hell just happened. And then all of that support that was there during the active treatment isn't there, which is good and bad. But you're just kind of left really with this like PTSD of what just happened, and then the darkness of, will I ever be back to what I used to be? Because it takes a long time to get there physically. I mean, well, emotionally too, but physically for sure too. And so I don't think that we're prepared for that. I don't know that, the medical profession is, and Corey's always asking, like, we fail at XYZ, and she'll say, do we do a good job of this? Or how did you know, when your hair was going to fall and things like that. And I think, one thing to prepare women for, or their support person, is that following year can be really difficult too. So while it may look like you're physically healing, and you certainly are, there are times for certain women that it might be even harder than when they're in active treatment, and I found that true for myself. But again, it might not be for everyone, and I didn't speak about suicidal thoughts and those kind of really dark, icky things for quite a while. And when I finally did, Jason and his mom, who were living obviously with us at the time, were just absolutely shocked and had no idea that was happening in my head while I'm laying in our room by myself. And of course I wasn't going to share it either. So I think I know that's what he's referencing, is be aware that it's not over just because surgery's over and people start to look normal again for some women.
I said after surgery it finally dawned on me, you get so bogged down with the process and the treatment and what's next and what do we need to do. When Dr. Jordan called me to talk about the pathology report, and she finally said in the end, you know, you're cancer free. I was like, oh yeah, you know, like that is the goal here. You just kind of forget because you sit here and go, my hair is gone and my nails are icky and I can't taste things well and my stomach is upset, and you have all these things and you just don't realize, like, this is what we've been waiting for since like in December. I was just like, I just want this out, just cut it out of me, and or start treatment or something. You know, you feel like it doesn't get going fast enough, like Terry referred to, but it's that whole process and keeping the right mindset of, yes, you are cancer free now. It's like going through childbirth and you forget about it, but you have this beautiful baby, and it's like you go through cancer and you have this beautiful health in the end, and you have to hold on to that part of it and try to just keep moving forward and healing and stick together with it all. You know, it affects everybody, you know, and sometimes you kind of forget that, you know, and you want to take care of each other all the time, but sometimes you have to take care of the other and watch out for yourself.
I think of, maybe to reference your original question too a little bit on this, I think of the difference in general terms, the difference between men and women, like when you're raising your kids. Mothers are excellent when it comes to so many things, and dads tend to just be rough and tumble and everything else, and as long as if I'm babysitting that night, as long as they are alive by the end of the night, I did a good job. Whereas that's not nearly good enough, you know, in most the minds of women. You should be doing this or that. But together, as a team, raising kids, the two things tend to work well together. Sometimes kids need a good stern talking to that maybe dad provides, or they need the comfort that mother provides. Same thing here is kind of what I looked at. Sometimes you looked at some things where I just like that more objectively, because I just do that more in my normal course of daytime activities. And I don't know, I thought that helped me. I don't know that it helped you a lot. Maybe some of the stuff I kept track of, all the visits and all the insurance type stuff, so that you didn't have to, so that we knew that we're covered and that sort of thing. At least that's one burden off our minds, you know, hopefully. But, you know, that's, and we did, and like Jason said, we joked around about like a lot of the stuff too. We just simply laughed. Like when your hair fell out, we just laughed together. Like, well, there it is. You know,
if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah.
It's
right?
gone, yeah. There's nothing you can do about it. It'll grow back. Let's just.
I jokingly told Amber, I said, I can't shave my hair off my head because I'm afraid it won't come back. So I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
I said, I only have what I have left, and that is
What
what
if I
it is.
could, but
Yeah.
I'm scared, yeah.
I said that every time he came back from a haircut during this when I had none. I said, not in Solidarity Day today again, right? Nope.
I said, nope. Yeah.
It's funny what you find humor in.
Well, Bonnie, what do you like to recommend for these couples going through breast cancer, especially the spouses who obviously aren't going through the same deal, but they still have to go through this? What do you like to tell them to kind of reassure them that it's okay, this is what you need to do to take space, stuff like that?
I think that it is that recognition of they're going through it too, like just validating that this is not just an inclusive, it's really takes a toll on all the family members, especially spouses. They carry a heavy role in all of this, and most men or the significant other will see themselves as the protector, and like, how do I protect my wife, and how to move through that, and become very task oriented, which I think is a great coping skill at that time. I also think and really encourage couples to keep asking what you need. What do you need in the day? You know, is it in during active treatment and out of active treatment? Asking your spouse what you need for the day can be really an amazing conversation to move through that, and the grace for each other, to not allow the awfulness and the stress of cancer to impact or impede the relationship, because the stress that comes within relationships, if we pull out the stress of cancer, everything comes back together really nicely. And just really recognizing that it's heavy. You all are carrying a very heavy load, and it's not about doing it right. It's just doing it about together and asking the questions, and the humor and the communication, I think, are just really valuable. And the grace. And I do believe that trauma, it waits until you're physically better, and then it comes and says, hello, I'm here. Now you got to deal with me, right? And that is a very challenging time, and I often will share with people, like, ask about it. We ask women after they have a baby how they're doing emotionally. This is no different, right? And so trying to ask those questions is good. Yeah.
You know, we get asked a lot, you probably haven't as much yet, but as women behind us come into their diagnosis and stuff, asking for suggestions and what would you do about this and that. And now we have our own little group of breast cancer survivors in our Be the Light groups to talk to. But as husbands, can you guys think of somebody, if men did this, which I don't think they do, but, if there was a takeaway that, if somebody reached out to you and said, my wife was just diagnosed with breast cancer, can you think of any piece of advice or anything?
I would say talk to my wife. She's founded Be the Light. but all jokes aside, to put a plug in for Be the Light, 7 years ago, and that's why it was kind of started to an extent, of course, because of Ann B. But when you were going through this, it was pretty much, you and Shiloh, and yes, the oncology team and Susan Garish, but you and Shiloh kind of worked together, talked together, commiserated together, and got through the female emotional side of it together with as much as your husbands could. But Be the Light, I think, helps women outreach and talk and ask questions. I don't know how many times I've been at home sitting and you get a phone call and you talk to somebody for 30 minutes and I say, who was that? Oh, it was somebody that just got your name because they said that you did this and you did this, and you talked for 30 minutes because they just need somebody to talk to and to ask questions because they don't know where they're at or what's going on right now or what am I going to do a year from now or will this happen or this will happen. And as men, we don't have that information, so it's a good thing, especially for Be the Light in the area, to have a sounding board for women in the area.
Do you think that you're talking about women, and I'm thinking if a spouse reached out to you, what would your advice be to another, if Terry had reached out to you 8 months ago, is there anything specifically you would have said, reflecting on our journey, that could have helped a partner? That's one question. The second one I have for both of you is, do you think that a support group or something like this, real informal for spouses during this time or after, would be helpful, and would it be well attended in our area? I mean, I think that's the other thing. In our demographic, would that be worth putting any time into or not? It wasn't around when we went through it, but we have the platform now, and we've talked about things like that. So do you guys think something like that would ever be helpful?
No, I definitely, and to go back to what I initially said a couple minutes ago is, as men, we're built to do things, fix things, pick up things, and take care of things. But I guess the biggest takeaway I would say is try to be as in tune to the emotional and mental side of it as you can, because as men we're not. And that would be the one thing that I would take away from it, is that there's more going on than just the physical and outside stuff. There's a lot of inside stuff going in that we can't fix, but we can try.
How about you, Terry?
I like, that wasn't your original question, but Jason touched on the Be the Light thing. Because you came to our house about the time we needed you to come there. I thought, when I think back to that day when you came there, I don't remember when exactly it was, but it was still cold out, and we were maybe getting started. We were into treatment already, the chemo already a little ways.
It was right before Christmas.
She maybe had her first treatment, or was about to, when we were scared to death, and it was nice for me at least to ask you, because you had gone through it, and I kind of jumped to you with a lot of questions because
I remember.
I was like, hey, this is going to be helpful because we got a real live person who's lived through it and survived it. You know, when we were at a time where we weren't sure how this goes, that part was very helpful. And when you left that day, you maybe don't know, but I think there was a big relief lifted off of our shoulders. We're like, okay, that helped a lot.
Oh,
You
that's
know,
good to know.
and you know, as a guy, yeah, Jason's right. We don't emotionally, we're not as in tune with things as women normally are. I don't know if that's a fault or not. It's just a fact. But I have tried, and maybe you've noticed, or maybe you haven't. But like, okay, yeah, we joke around all this stuff and try to take care of things, and I'm gone doing this or that, and then I come home. But when we go to bed, you're usually in there first, and we talk for a bit, and I usually try to look. I just try to look in your eyes, because we've been married for 28 years, and we know. You don't have to say a word. Oftentimes, and I can look in your eyes, and I know what. Okay, are we okay or not? Obviously you can see the fear or not that particular day. Like, okay, things like that. I guess that would be a thing to do for any. I would tell someone who would ask me coming up. Just be in tune. That's maybe one way to do it, because I think the eyes are the window to the soul, especially for women. And if you can just connect that way, if even though you don't say much, I think women are a lot smarter than we are. So when they see us looking into it, they feel like, okay, he's actually somewhat close to getting this and understanding what's going on here.
I think that's a great idea, or great suggestion.
As far as a group setting, maybe once in a while, I don't foresee it being something I'd want to go to every week or anything like that. Again, I'm a guy still. But I know what it's done for her. But she's the patient. Maybe if I was a patient, I would. I don't. All along, I felt a little guilty that she's going through all this, and here I am, as healthy as I've ever been. I'm glad for that, but yet it's still, kind of sucks for her. And there's nothing you can do. It doesn't do any good for me to wallow in it so much. But yeah, it is kind of a journey.
Bonnie, it looked like you're thinking over there.
I'm thinking, and because my curiosity is sparked in terms of so for the gentleman sitting in the room, I start to wonder about your support system, your guy friends, or the people that you talk to, normally about whatever. What was helpful from your group of people, or what was not helpful from your group of people that maybe they said or did? That brings some curiosity of the people that normally you would hang out with. Did they do things that were great? Did they do things that was like, oof, that was not helpful?
I got a group of friends from high school that we still are close. We're tight all these years later, and we have a texting group, and we don't, it's not every day or every week even, but we can go to it at any time. And when I've given a few updates, I didn't want to give them a lot, but they were very concerned, so I'd give them some. And especially now lately, when the actual surgery happened, I gave them like 3 or 4 different updates over the first couple of days afterwards. And the amount of support I got from them was enormous. And the amount of prayers they said they were sending our way and things like that. I honestly feel that, as a religious person, that has helped. I just think there's so much value in those sorts of things, where when someone says, well, I'll pray for you, and if they actually do, I think it actually helps and it works. It seems to have in our case, at least. So that's been very helpful from my standpoint. I can't think of anything that's been like, no, didn't need that. Anything they do seems to be something that's coming from the heart and matters.
And Amber probably knows my answer to this. We were not New Ulm people, so we moved here where I went to college and high school. I'm friends with some of people from back then, but not as tight as Amber is with some of her girlfriends. I didn't have a huge support group other than my mom was here and just via text and people that we're friends with in town here. I probably did it the other way. I probably more sunk into kind of barricade the door shut, and we'll get through this however long it takes. So
Well, I think what I was also thinking is your support was my friend group. They were checking in on you. My best friends were checking in on you, I know, texting you and what can we do. And I remember Sarah saying, she was messaging you, you know, when when they knew I'd had a rough day or was struggling, and you were the in-between, you were the messenger. And, you know, those are things we forget about 7 years later,
Absolutely.
but those were important things. When I couldn't speak and I was in bed and feeling icky, you know, you could be the messenger, kind of advocate for, she's not up for visitors today, or, you know, stuff like that. She needs some alone
Definitely.
time, or she's resting, or so I think, you know, even though they weren't your guy friends necessarily, I think you had I know you had a lot of support even from like family and then my friends too.
absolutely.
Yeah. Good question though. That's a good way to think of that, Bonnie, of who takes care of the caregivers.
It's amazing though. I mean, when you pick your partner for life, and you know what qualities they have, but you just never know exactly what they're going to be like through the thick and the thin, and you're just there and you take care of each other. You know, he had surgery, I took care of him. You know, I'm going through all this, he's taking care of me, and it's just, you just step up when you need to. I know in the beginning of all this, you know, the shock and the devastation at first, you know, you cry a little bit, whatever, and now it's like, okay, what's step number one? What do we need to do? Let's go, and let's take care of this, and we just keep moving forward. And you have good days and bad days. I have to say, having this during COVID and in the winter having chemo and you're not feeling well and you're not getting out, and I don't want to get sick and this and that. When you came and when I went to the Be the Light retreat, I needed that a lot at that point, and I didn't know how much I needed it at that point. And then when Dr. Jordan pushed me into doing the survival fitness, I didn't know how much I needed that, and to get in with this group of people, it's that support of women who have been through it before. I've always said this, when I was pregnant for the first time, I'd see people and I go, oh, well, Amber gave birth. If she can do it, I can do it. That type of thing. And I said, I see it in the same way. It's just like, she went through this, she went through this, she went through this. I can do this. I can be strong and go through, and with the support of my husband, my adult children, and whatever, there's a lot you can take care of, and keep moving forward. So.
And I was thinking as you were saying that, in sickness and in health, when you think about your marriage vows too, I mean, you have no idea when you're 20-something and standing on the altar and making those promises, what that's really going to mean.
Although we have joked that we didn't, it wasn't that much that we were signing up for.
Again, back to the humor.
Yes.
We do the same thing.
I'm not sure I signed up for this much
right.
sickness.
Right.
Yes, they don't ever give you the book of life when you get married at 23. And if somebody would say, 20 years from now, you're going to be going through this, you're like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Sure. You just can't be prepared for those kind of things. But, and to Tammy's point, whoever's listening to this, no matter where you are, hopefully you can find an organization like we have here now, or just a group of survivors that can help you through, and that you can find support in. And because I think even back in 2015 and 2016, when at home we're talking, I kept saying I want to do something with this, and here we are now, had no idea really that it would progress to this, and also did not realize how helpful it would be to myself. I wanted to pay forward and help other women, but by doing so, it's still healing me all these years later. And I know Dr. Jordan has mentioned and validated that trauma that is still there, and buried deep sometimes, but still I still need it too. So again, wherever people are, hopefully they can find some sort of support group that they with women that are going through the same thing. And I also wish that I had been wise enough to go maybe do some one-on-one counseling or therapy with someone like Bonnie here. I don't think at the time you're so involved with your physical health, but I guess I would also say if you have any question or any if you're struggling and it's hard to, you don't have a support group, and you have a hard time talking about it with your friends and family and your spouse because they don't understand, and then you don't want to tell them all your dark thoughts because you're going to freak everyone out. So you just keep it in and it just festers and gets worse. I really think in this day and age, we all really, and I think through COVID, pushed for the mental health, wellness that or what am I trying to say? Mental health matters, and everybody, we realized there's a lot of need out there. And I think for survivors, it's unique and there's not a lot of people you can talk to. And in hindsight, I wish I would have either someone would have suggested doing that for me. I think I could have really benefited from that in hindsight. So I hope that if anyone's listening that is struggling, will be encouraged to reach out for help because it would have been helpful.
And I think that the piece of, when I think about my role in sitting in with people, I do a lot of, tell me how your visit went, how you're feeling about it, and then we kind of reprocess that visit again and come with like questions of, they said this, or why are they not doing this, or why is this so slow? And because I know the process, we can just really it's the validation. Yep, they have to do these steps in order to get you the best plan of care. Or yep, lots of people get anxious during this time, and that is normal. But once we get there, it's okay. Or that reassurance of, yep, we're going to see an increase of anxiety pre-scans because that's a really difficult time. Or of like, I often find myself saying, another person sitting in this chair told me this, and I think you really need to hear this today. And it's not coming from me. It's really coming from somebody that has been in that journey, and I find that to be incredibly valuable because it's meatier, it means more than anything that I can really say. But to give that message back to somebody that's gone through it is really important. And just that common thread of another person giving you that reassurance. I love this idea and I'm sitting here today going, I just learned something new about how important it is to tell your friends to check in on their husbands. And I think here I am sitting in this room and learning something else that I can now pass forward again to a group of husbands and wives or any significant other that might be with the caregiver, and how important that might be, that you still are making a difference to all of these people and giving value to a really horrendous experience. It's therapeutic and it helps with processing trauma when you can find value in it as well, because at the moment it feels really awful. And lots of times we can't do that in the midst of treatment or in the midst of the journey, but it comes out fully when you talk about it, or you can reflect on what another person is saying and be like, oh, I was there too. So I always say, don't stop sharing your story, because it is so therapeutic, not only for yourself, but I think for others, because even for me, I'm picking up all of this good stuff so that I can share that with another set of people. And it may be tomorrow, and it may be 5 years down the road, and that message is so beautiful, and it gives so much value to your journey, and it meant something. All this awfulness meant something. And I think a lot of that other piece is that reassurance of, lots of people say to me, am I going crazy? And I say, no, this is trauma. You have just been diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. You are supposed to feel this way, and you are fine. You are going to be okay, and there's nothing wrong with you, because now they've been diagnosed with cancer or breast cancer, and there's something physically wrong, and then the racing thoughts come in and the self-doubt comes in, and you're like, where did I go? Now is there something wrong with my mental state? And the answer is always no. I'm just coming in to help you guide to do that. Everybody that get diagnosed with cancer gets an adjustment disorder, and everybody has an adjustment disorder despite you see a therapist or not, because we get handed lots of things in life. But it just ends up being another person that can hold the feelings for a while until you can have them back and do something with them again. But I like to learn something new, so thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Being open and paying extra attention to the emotional needs of your spouse is incredibly important during the difficult time that breast cancer brings. I want to thank Terry and Jason for joining us in our discussion, as well as Bonnie for her thoughts from the therapy perspective. Furthermore, I want to thank Tammy and Amber for bringing their husbands and sharing their point of view on the support they received as the patients. Finally, I'd like to thank you for listening, and if you are a spouse with a loved one who is battling breast cancer, we hope you took comfort in the words of others who have gone through a similar experience. Keep an eye out for more episodes, and always remember to get it off your chest.